Hey everyone, and welcome. When you look at the natural world, from bacteria in a dish to these massive herds of wildebeest, you might just see chaos. But nope. Turns out, nature has a hidden rule book for how life organizes itself. And today, we're going to crack that book open and explore the amazing world of population ecology. I mean, just look at this incredible scene. At first glance, it's just a massive, stampeding crowd, right? But it's not random. There's a hidden logic, a kind of dance happening here. So the big question is, how in the world does nature manage a crowd this huge without everything just collapsing into chaos? Well, let's find out. Okay, first things first. Before we can figure out how these crowds work, we got to get our terms straight. The word population gets thrown around a lot, but in ecology, it means something very, very specific. So, check this out. A population isn't just any old group of animals. It has to meet 4 strict criteria. They all have to be the same species, they have to live in the same area at the same time, and here's the real kicker, they have to be able to breed with each other. That last part is so important because it means we're talking about a shared gene pool, not just a bunch of critters hanging out. All right, so once we know what our population is, we can measure it in 2 key ways. First, you've got population size, which is simple, right? It's just the total head count. But then you have population density. Think of it like this. Population size tells you how many people live in the entire country. Population density tells you how many people are crammed into a single subway car at rush hour. See the difference? So why do we care so much about how crowded it is? Because density, you guys, is where all the action is. It's what cranks the dial way up on competition for food, it determines how fast diseases can tear through a group, and it controls how quickly everyone gobbles up all the resources. Density is where the ecological drama really unfolds. And what's really cool is that populations aren't just a jumble of individuals. They actually have a structure, a kind of internal architecture, and the way they arrange themselves tells us a whole lot about their lives and what their future might look like. You can see the 3 main patterns right here. The first one is clumped, where everyone groups together. This is the big one, by far the most common pattern in nature. Why? Well, it's simple. Resources like food and water are rarely spread out evenly, so life clumps around them. Then you have uniform, which you see when there's competition, like birds defending their little patch of territory. And last, you have random, which is actually super rare because it requires everything to be perfectly even. Now, this is like having a crystal ball for a population's future. Seriously, these age pyramids can tell you exactly where things are headed. If you see a wide base with tons of young ones, that population is ready to boom. If it looks more like a column, it's pretty stable. But if it's top-heavy with way more old individuals than young, that population is probably headed for a decline. It's an incredible forecasting tool. Okay, so we've got the structure down. But now for the really exciting part. How do these populations actually change over time? This gets us into the real engine of it all, the boom and bust cycles of growth. You know, when you boil it all down, it's just simple math. You've got additions and you've got subtractions. Births, or natality if you want to get technical, add individuals to the pile. Deaths, or mortality, take them away. That's it. The entire game of population dynamics is just the balance between those 2 forces. So let's play a little what-if game. Let's imagine a population that has the ultimate cheat code turned on. Unlimited food, endless space, and absolutely 0 predators. What do you think happens? Yeah, you get an absolute explosion. It's called exponential growth, and it creates this classic J-shaped curve you see here. The population just doubles and doubles and doubles again. It skyrockets. It's a runaway train with no brakes. But, and this is a really big but, this is purely theoretical. It pretty much only happens in a lab. Which brings us to the big question. Is that how the real world works? Can anything just grow forever without stopping? You already know the answer. Absolutely not. Nature is all about limits. And this is the reality check. It's called logistic growth, and it gives us this much more realistic S-shaped curve. A population starts out growing fast, kind of like that J-curve, but then reality hits. Resources get a little scarcer, competition kicks in, and the growth rate starts to slow down until it eventually levels off at a plateau. And here it is, the perfect comparison. On the left, you've got that J-curve, the fantasy of endless growth in a perfect world. And on the right, you've got the S-curve, the reality of hitting a wall in the real world. And see that dotted line it's bumping up against? That line is everything. So what is that wall? What are those limits that cause growth to level off? Well, that brings us to the final, and maybe most important piece of the puzzle. Nature's own system of checks and balances, the rules of regulation. That ceiling, that plateau on the S-curve, has a very important name. It's called the carrying capacity, and ecologists call it K. This bucket analogy is perfect. Any environment is like a bucket. It can only hold so much water before it overflows. The carrying capacity is the maximum population that an environment can support forever, based on things like food, water, and space. So the rules that enforce this carrying capacity, the things that stop a population from growing forever, well, they basically come in two main flavors. You have the ones that care about how crowded it is, and then you have the ones that just don't care at all. Let's start with the ones that care about crowding, the density-dependent factors. The best way to think about these as built-in brakes. The more crowded a population gets, the harder the brakes get pushed. You get way more competition for food, diseases spread like wildfire. It's a natural feedback loop that keeps things from getting totally out of hand. And then you have the complete opposite, density-independent factors. These are external shocks from out of nowhere. A massive wildfire, a flash flood, a sudden freeze. These things don't ask for a head count. They don't care if there are 10 deer in the forest or 10,000. They just hit. It's often sudden and it's unpredictable. Okay, that was a lot, I know. We've gone from defining a population all the way to how it's regulated. So let's boil this whole story down to the 5 absolute most important takeaways you need to remember. Here we go, the master summary. Number 1, in nature, life isn't spread out evenly. It clumps together around resources. That's the default. Number 2, that explosive J-shaped growth curve, it's basically a fantasy. The S-shaped curve is the real story of life. 3, the S-curve happens because nature has limits. 4, those limits are enforced by 2 things: factors that depend on crowding, like disease, and factors that don't, like bad weather. And finally, number 5, the ultimate speed limit is the carrying capacity, K, which is determined by whatever critical resource runs out first. So at the end of the day, what we're really watching is this beautiful, delicate dance that's happening all the time, all over the planet. It's a dance between life's unstoppable urge to grow and multiply and the hard and fast limits set by the environment. You know, these rules of growth, of limits, of regulation, they apply to everything. Every plant, every animal, every microbe on Earth plays by this rulebook. Which leaves us with one pretty big question to think about. What happens when one species, just one, starts to figure out how to bend those rules, or maybe even break them altogether? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for watching.